The only real God is the one that you believe in. Start looking for the God in others. And if you find you're tuning into a wave, well then I don't know much about the insane.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, friends.
Welcome in to another episode of Spiritual Philosophy Chatter with the Joneses. I'm Danny Jones.
And I am Samantha Jones.
And here we are, episode 71.
71.
Pretty cool.
That's the year you were born.
It is.
It's a good number.
That means I'm old.
Yeah, me too.
What's the topic of 71?
Today is the ego.
The ego.
Yeah.
Big one.
It is. It's important, especially I think where we are in this move into the fifth dimension and, to the Great Awakening. It's a very important part that fits with all of that, I feel.
I agree.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, before we hop into that, anything from last week on the Tesla episode?
Yes, Tesla. Yes, I had one of our listeners, Kaylee, she sent this. She said, just listen to the Tesla podcast. Isn't he just an amazing man? To be able to have a conversation with him would be fascinating. Mm-hmm. You guys started talking about numbers. I know you said you don't like numbers, but have you ever looked into numerology? The universe speaks to us in numbers, and numerology is absolutely mind-blowing. I hope you and Danny are well. So grateful to have found your podcast. I've recommended it to everyone. Thank you,
cool.
Kaylee.
Thank you, Kaylee.
I wanted to point out, it's not that I'm not a numbers person. And I realized that when I said that in the episode, afterwards I thought about it. I was like, okay, I love numbers and synchronicity. I live my life by synchronicity. Mm-hmm. What I mean is I'm not good at math.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So I can't do the whole numbers thing real fast. And so I'm not good with numbers.
But I think maybe kind of part of what Kaylee was talking about is also that thing that we were watching on Connected. Can't remember.
I couldn't follow it. That was my point. As I was like, I can't follow this because I'm not good with numbers.
But that's something we should do an episode on.
I can't remember what that was called, but that was a very interesting topic.
Well, we'll
and I
get
think
back.
Right.
We'll bring it up. But yeah, we did mention it. I think
we did. Yeah, I would think we should absolutely do that. I think like with numerology, we maybe should do an episode on that too. I've only dabbled in that a little bit, and I found it to not really be super accurate. But I don't really know anything about it, so I'd have to look more into it. But I did like that that suggestion to look into numerology, maybe do an episode
I think even
on that.
The theory with what Tesla was doing, the 369, that involves numerology in a sense. Yes,
right, absolutely. It's this equals this and this and this plus and minus and blah blah. But so we'll have to do that. So thank you for the suggestion.
Yeah, very nice.
Appreciate it.
Cool. That's all you got for that.
That's what I got.
Nice.
Yes.
All right. Well, how about episode 71?
71.
The ego.
The ego. I think that, like I mentioned, this is a really important topic with everything that's going on, because when you can get rid of your ego, I'm learning, is when you really can open yourself up more and more spiritually. Like, I think growing up, we always hear the term like egotistical. That person has an ego, or he's egotistical, but there's so much more to it than just that.
Right.
There's so much more to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It definitely has its pitfalls, probably, I think, more times than none.
Yeah, for sure.
But it also can be your natural defense, part of your natural defense mechanism.
Yes,
so
for sure.
I'm not saying it doesn't serve a purpose.
Right. Also
on an individual level, meaning survival and
yes,
things having to put yourself first kind of thing.
Yes, and we'll definitely get into all of that for sure.
Yeah.
Let's do the definition first, like we always do, and talk a little bit about what it is, what ego is. What does the word ego mean? An ego is a person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance. So like you said, it does have a purpose. You can't just eliminate the ego altogether, because then you probably would have like no self-esteem. There's got to be a balance. It's all about balance.
Yeah.
What I've taken from the research that I've done the ego to be is what we are given here as humans. It has nothing to do with our soul. Our soul is pure when it comes here. Those other things that we feel, because the ego is very fear-based, those are our human
that's
things,
all human.
You know? Yeah.
That's part of this casing. It's
exactly.
Your soul or your spirit, however you want to call it, to me is definitely separate than your mind and your body. Okay? So you have feelings and emotions and all these things and perceptions and senses, and this is within your mind.
Right.
But outside of that, that doesn't exist. There's no need for it.
That's right.
So I definitely, I guess my point is that I feel like as an extension of God, which that's what I believe we all are, is like he shot us out and said, I'm going to personalize each one of you and put you in a body, and you're going to have a name, and you're going to live a life.
Right.
He's personalizing us, and you're going to go out and do good things, I hope, with this life. The ego then all of a sudden is kind of part of our defense mechanism.
Right.
We start to feel sometimes alone in this life.
Right.
And we need to feel like something is there to lean on or count on.
Yep.
So that's the part about it that I feel can be that defense mechanism or a safety net.
Right,
or let's say, like, if you mentioned this earlier, if you were in a catastrophe or something had happened and it's a matter of survival.
Right.
You're putting yourself first. Is that egotistical? Well, yes, in a sense.
Right. But you have to for survival.
But you have to.
Mm-hmm. So there's a plus and a minus to everything, you know?
So to me, what we've done is we so needed to identify individually, instead of being extensions of God, we had to come up with this ego.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's for protection. And really, if you look at it too, like, all of us have different egos, and we'll get into like what the different things of egos to look for are. But our ego is really, it's based on a few things, and one of them is childhood, how we're raised, what we see, what we feel, what we're taught. And growing up through adulthood, like something that popped into my mind when you were talking just now is Billie Eilish and her song "Everything I Wanted." She says something about if they knew that what they said would go to my head, would they say it still, basically? And it's very true, because sometimes that happens without you even knowing that it's happening. Like people can fill your head full of stuff so much that you start to feel like you're above everybody, and then you're just stuck there and you don't even know how you got there. So these are the there's so many ways that you can get there. But I feel like spiritually, especially when you have like a spiritual awakening, you open your eyes more to that, and you see that is really, like you said, it's just what comes with this shell and what we're taught.
Well, even that lyric can be taken in a different context, meaning even if they knew the bad things that they were saying about me would affect me this way, would true. People still say bad things about me?
That's very true.
This is the part of humanity, like with... What was the whole concept of behind why rumors started? There was a theory, I can't remember.
Oh, yeah, it was like boredom or something. I can't really remember. I know what you're talking about. Like, we saw something about...
And it made so much sense.
It did, yeah.
And it's somehow oftentimes I think those can be connected, like ego and rumor. And it's ego can be a very bad thing.
Yes.
It really can.
It can,
I think the more that you can kind of focus on humility walking through this, you'll have a better time navigating that ego inside you.
Yep. I'll tell you that I've made a lot of changes, so have you, since the spiritual awakening. Things that come naturally, some that don't, things that my mom told me I needed to do that were difficult, but I've done them. The hardest thing for me is letting go of that ego. Because I still catch myself, and I try so hard, and I still catch myself saying stupid stuff and being like, no, that's your ego, stop it.
Right.
So this isn't easy.
No, it's not.
And I don't want anybody to think that we're sitting here saying that we don't have egos or we've let it go, because that's not the case at all. We're still very much working on this. But that's, I think, when we talk about moving into the fifth dimension, that's what has to happen.
Yeah.
Is that in order for us to do that, people have to let go of their egos, because holding on to all of these things, it keeps us grounded. It drags us down.
Yeah.
So as hard as it is, we have to find this way to make it happen, to let go of the ego.
I remember my last job, they, in order to, management would kind of tell you, in order to like advance, you need to toot your own horn a lot. Mm-hmm. And I had a problem with that.
Right.
Because I felt like, first of all, that's not me.
Right.
I might share with somebody, oh, look what I did, look what I made, or look what I, whatever.
Right.
But I don't want to do that all the time.
Right.
And the other part was like, if your management's paying attention, they'll see it.
Right.
They'll recognize it.
That's very true,
Why should I be tooting anything?
Right.
We all got a job here, so... But that was uncomfortable for me. It felt strange. It felt like this stupid competition kind of who's going to toot their horn more to get where they want to go.
You know what that reminds me of is what's going on with Ellen. Because when I read about what's going on, like, with her producers, not necessarily with her, but they talked about how hard it is to make it in Hollywood, and how the people that want to make it will do whatever they have to do, even if it means treating other people like crap. Sure. And that's a lot of what's happening here. Yeah. And that is ego as well. It's like, you don't have to use your ego to get ahead. Yeah. You don't. Yeah. It's a misconception.
I've experienced a lot in music. I really have.
Yeah, for sure.
Just throughout the years, and people that I've come in contact with and even been involved with, there are some egos out there.
Yeah. And
that was another area that I didn't ever, I didn't do that. I didn't go, ooh, I'm this virtuoso, and ooh, I'm this, and ooh, I'm that. And I was more like, I'm here to be a team player.
Right.
That's what I'm about. Like, I like basketball and seeing these guys move down the court together as a team and making that basket somehow as a team. It wasn't necessarily the guy that actually made the basket. It was the effort that it went into making that basket as a group. So that's how I always viewed it.
Right.
And that's a tough thing in any kind of interest, profession.
For sure.
When you have to come into contact and deal with certain types of people.
Right.
But sometimes, it is necessary to share, your experience.
Yeah.
And I guess how you do that will depend on how maybe egotistical it comes off. But
yeah. I think, it's one of those things like, okay, for example, the very first time that I heard ego used, like, in a spiritual sense, I had met this girl. She was also a medium. I met her on Facebook, and she was, like, immediately drawn to me. And this was at the very beginning of being a medium. Her name was Tara. And she was, like, immediately drawn to me. And I was kind of standoffish because I don't really trust real quick, But she seemed really nice, and we started making a friendship, and I started talking to her about some of the things that was happening in other reading groups, because people were mean to me because of my abilities. And I'm not tooting my own horn.
Right.
I didn't know what I could do. I had no idea that people were intimidated by me. I was just doing what I felt was natural. Right. And so Tara said to me, that's their ego. Their ego is making them feel that way. That's not you at all. Right. But the wild part of it is that she gave me this whole lecture about ego, and she ended up a few months later blocking and unfriending me because I wouldn't rush to do something for her because we were in the middle of a fire season here, and I was dealing with that. And I was like, just, give me a few and I'll deal with it. It's just bad time right now.
Right.
And I was like, but wait, you were the one that told me all about ego here, Yeah. And so it just, it kind of like, it double slaps you a little bit when somebody does that, because you figure, this person, they're telling me about ego, but then I realized she's human, just like me, just like you, just like the rest of us. She's
and
human.
I can't go. I mean, I think this is something that us as a species developed for ourselves, but there's a reason that it's here.
Yeah.
So it's not it can't be all bad.
Right.
Because we are a creation. We are an extension. But there's a fine line there, kind of like that explanation, that story of it can bring you together, it can divide you.
Yep.
It can protect you, and it can cut you off from the source.
Absolutely.
Your ego can cut you off from your intuition, which your intuition is coming from the other side, explaining to you how to handle things. If you would shut up your mind and listen, shut up meaning stop having the arguments that you're having in your head, that you're planning. Just stop that.
Right.
Because, they don't usually ever go the way that your arguments go in your head.
Most of the time they never even happen.
Yeah.
It's just such a waste of time.
True. Yeah. So it's, you can put a lot of effort into that. But the more that you can stop that and take a moment, not all day, but just a few moments to quiet it and listen.
Yes, it is
then
important.
That's your connection. Mm-hmm. But if your ego's telling you no, and the people that were mean to you, people are generally scared of the unknown.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
People don't want to know that there's people walking around. There are some people that don't want to know there's people walking around this world that are connected.
Yeah.
And they can see things in advance. But this has been happening for hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah.
We've had people walking around this planet that can do this. It is not abnormal.
No, it's just...
It's a pure sign that we are an extension. We're a connection.
Yeah.
And they're being fed information. Why? To scare them?
Right.
No.
Right. I talk sometimes about how animals react off of two things, and that's fear and love. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with people. In the research that I did, one of the things that I read was that the ego is fear-based. Mm-hmm. And usually people with the worst egos had issues with love. They're not loved enough, or they weren't loved enough. They have to be taught how to love sometimes to get rid of this ego. So you can see how, two different ends of the spectrum here.
Yeah.
A couple of other things that I wrote down about ego in particular is the ego has an agenda that is at odds with the soul. So you're fighting yourself here. And I feel, I feel that. I don't know if you feel that, but on days where I'm just like, it's my ego, I feel my soul inside going, stop it.
Yep.
Stop it.
Yeah.
We've talked about this, actually. There was one day I was scrolling through Facebook, and I said, do you ever, see something that you want to like, and then you see who it belongs to, and so you keep scrolling, and I'm like, I'm sure we all do that.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm human, I do. But there's that voice, whether it's my mom or it's my higher conscience or whatever it is inside of me going, go back and like that post.
Yeah.
Or if somebody looks bad in a picture and they put it up about themselves, about whatever, and you're like, oh man, you look really bad in that picture, I'm going to keep scrolling. Well, it's not their fault. They look like crap in that picture. Like it. And that's what I was hearing in my head. And then I said that to you and you were like, I've been hearing the same thing. Mm-hmm. And that's the other side telling us this is a part of our ego. That if we feel like there's a post that we would like, or, if it's something negative, even if it's something that, this person, okay, that's a bad picture of them, but they still deserve love it.
Yeah.
These are just small examples.
That's true.
But it is all our ego, and we don't really realize
that energy, and it will be resounding.
Yep.
So, but you made a good point, and kind of an analogy I was thinking about it is, if you were to look at the ego, the way it does, the spirit and the ego, and the way that they sort of combat one another.
Yep.
In a way.
That's right.
I look at it as an analogy of like a tired parent with a really cranky, hyper toddler.
Yeah.
And the parent's like, no, come on, it's time to go take a bath and go to bed. And the toddler just wants to taunt and jump and dart around to avoid being caught by the parent.
Right.
When they know that once they're in the parent's clutches, they will calm down and they'll kind of get back to, some level of relaxing and normalcy.
Right.
That's kind of how I view it. My parent, my inner parent or my spirit is going, calm down.
Yeah.
Relax. Always putting myself in check.
Yeah.
Even when I know that I have, whether I've done wrong or I've thought about doing wrong,
yeah,
it's an immediate But sometimes the ego wins.
It does.
That's the fact here. But that's not by chance. That's by me allowing it.
Right.
So in that sort of combat, I've just sort of caved. I'm like that parent that's just kind of caved in and said, I'm so tired. Go ahead and do whatever you want.
Do what you want.
You know, I can't do it right now. That's
I feel you
that's
there.
how my mind sees it, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Something else here that I wrote down is we are programmed with certain beliefs, morals, and mindsets. When we start to wake up, we start to discover a new reality. And this is what I was kind of talking about earlier, that it is really once you start to open yourself up. And that's where this transformation of ego for me came with the spiritual awakening, because I didn't even see it. I didn't see that these things that I didn't like about myself or that other people didn't like about me, I didn't see that they were a problem or they were an ego, you know.
Right.
But when you have the spiritual awakening and you start to see everything so differently. Like, the world right now is falling apart, and I'm sitting here going, where can I help? What can I do? Instead of wanting to fight it, like, when I see people fighting, I just want them to stop.
Yeah.
You know, these are things that come with the spiritual awakening and the release of the ego, and the fighting of it, too, is, you're getting rid of all of those old beliefs and everything, and that's really hard, you know, those things that drug you down. And really, the hardest part of that is just admitting that you have those problems.
Yeah. I mean, we all, like you said, we all have an ego. Some is mega and some isn't.
Yeah.
You know, and then I've been around people that I would assume would have a major ego.
Right.
And they don't.
Right.
And I'm so drawn to them. I'd say Milo's probably one of those types of people.
Yeah.
That he's had a lot of experience musically with other people. I would have expected him to have kind of had that sort of, maybe.
Yeah, but no, not at all.
No, actually, he was like, that's kind of why I've kind of came back home, kind of full circle a little bit, something a little more hometown that people I knew, because I'm sort of fed up with a lot of the egos and the attitudes I've met throughout the years. So it was a blessing, but just to have that kind of presence and skill and, you know what I mean, talent.
He's very humble for the amount of talent that he has.
Oh, it's incredible.
That's the type of person, honestly, that, like, he just gives off that energy, that aura, and it's he's one of those people that he could change the world too, just with the energy that he gives off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He's a cool guy. So here's some ways of how to know if your ego has taken over, or if you should deal with some ego issues, I suppose. Let's see. You experience a lot of resentment. So you gossip a lot, you're critical, you condemning others. All of this feeds your ego. It's like it makes yourself look bad. It's making yourself look bad by talking about others too when you do that. So, yeah.
But in your mind, you're making yourself feel better.
Right.
Your ego, some way, thinks you're making yourself feel better by doing that.
Yeah. I've never understood that. Like, people that will go and talk about you behind your back and, like, tell people stories about you, the only person that really those people are going to judge is you, because you're sitting there telling them stories about people that they don't know, and this is coming from your pure ego. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
But there's a lot of people that do that. They want to gossip. They want, you know, I get it. It's human nature, but it is very detrimental to your mental health.
It will eat you alive.
It will, absolutely. It will. Yeah. Ignoring feedback you don't like. I will say that this is one that I have battled a lot. Because it is hard to say the other person is right. For years, you told me, and a lot of other people told me, you shouldn't drink soda. It's bad for your teeth. I was drinking soda at night.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you lecture all the time. You shouldn't do it. And I told you every time, shut up, mind your business. And I finally gave it up with resistance, with letting my ego go and saying, whatever happens, if I lose a bunch of weight, like you kept telling me, actually, you're not the only person that had told me that if I stopped drinking all the soda, I would lose weight, even the diet soda.
Yeah.
And yeah, I did. I lost quite a bit more weight.
Yeah, you did.
It's been a little over a year now. So, and I feel much, much, much better. And I can say to you, because I have dropped my ego on that, you're right. And anybody else listening that had told me over the years I shouldn't drink soda, you were right too. And I was wrong. And I just didn't want to admit to that. And I wanted to drink my soda. And I wanted everybody to shut up about it.
Our dire need to be right is probably, as humans over one another, is the primary best example of ego that I can think of.
Isn't it?
Is that there is this need to be right. And if we all could open ourselves, not to say always bow down and admit you're wrong when you know you're definitely right, but if we all could open ourselves a little more and be teachable.
Right.
Always being open to that.
Right.
Like, okay, I know what I know, but I am teachable about other things.
Yes.
I can learn. I'm not too old to learn, and I hope that I never say that I've got this mastered or all figured out. I don't know anything specifically.
Right.
I'm just going off my own intuition, the messages that I feel that I get when I put all this aside.
Yeah.
My ego and my BS thoughts and all that,
right.
You know?
For sure. It's humbling to have to say that you were wrong. Mm-hmm. It is. But it's okay. It's kind of a good humbling because I think sometimes our egos they need to be brought back down. And when you have to say, yeah, okay, sorry, I was wrong or whatever, it does. It's a little bit of a wake-up call. Humility
is such an important key to it. I know that there's other things like 12-step programs. They talk a lot about practicing humility.
Yes.
Religion. Different religions, whether it's Buddhism or Christianity, they talk about practicing humility.
Right.
This means, it's some level of respect. There's some level of compromise. There's a lot that goes into humility, I think. But it's essentially, for me, being like, I'm grateful, I'm honored, encompassing all that.
Right.
Like with this band that I play in, I mean, I am humbled to be able to play with guys that can play as good as this.
Right. Yeah.
It's an honor. It's bottom line.
Yeah.
The day that I'm not saying that anymore, then there's something wrong.
Yeah, your ego's kicked in there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this part about it, that's where I go, yeah, I'm on the right track.
Right.
Because I'm feeling that way. I'm honored to be in around certain people with after going through my first marriage and then having somebody come into my life like you. It's again, it's humbling. It's an honor because I know what I've had before.
Right.
Even in other musical experiences, the things that I've gone through before.
Right.
So it's the ego will 9 times out of 10 try to get in my own way.
Oh, yeah.
And will try to sabotage.
Right.
At what level you allow that to happen, that's up to you.
That's right.
Your spirit can control that if you allow your spirit to control it.
Yep.
But if your ego insists on it, your ego will probably win that round.
Yeah, I think that it comes back to having to be right, that a lot of people they can't let go of it, and so even when they know they're wrong, they still keep going with it, and it spirals and then you hold on to it.
Right.
And really, how do you move forward if you can't let go? If you're just going to keep holding on to it, and then you hold on to that resentment, which they're talking about here too. You have that resentment. It's all incorporated.
Yeah.
It's all
being right, it can kill you.
Yeah, it can.
The part about that is that if your ego does win, if you do have a level, if you're not a complete narcissist, if you do have a level of compassion and empathy, you're normally feel worse after your ego wins.
Oh, yes.
You have regret and remorse,
Yep.
Now that's an added extra karma that you've added to the plate.
Right.
That, guess what? That has to be dealt with.
Right. And it's funny because, like, no matter what the outcome is, you know what the outcome was. You can fight yourself on it as much as you want. It's like, okay, so if we have an argument and then, we apologize and let it go, I will hold on to it, like you said, a lot of times, not against you, but against myself, of why'd you do that? How could you have handled things differently? But this is also teaching me to let go of my ego, too.
Yeah.
It's teaching me that I don't want to argue anymore. I don't even want to start this. Like, let's end it before it starts, because that is what happens in a lot of arguments, is the ego comes in, and then you're battling and nobody gets anywhere,
And a lot of times that, I think, can come from your growing up.
Oh, for sure.
That part where, if you have a dominating parent, or a parent that always wants to rewrite, and most parents want to be right, but some will make it a point to, more than others, to tell you they're right.
Right.
Then that can affect your need to want to fight back and be right as well.
Exactly.
So I think specifically with Marina, and having her here, our approach is sort of like, hey, if shit happens, it happens.
That's right, yeah.
We move on.
Right.
We can move past, love can conquer anything.
Yes.
We can move past anything.
Yeah.
So if you had a bad day, you said something, it's okay.
Yeah.
Because we're family. And we got to be able to move forward.
Yep.
We don't have to.
Right.
But I would like to.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, And that goes for any facet. I mean, even with a group, band, you have arguments, you have disagreements. Mm-hmm. But if you've made a commitment to show up and to communicate in a common goal or common ground, then you've got to move forward.
Yeah, she's a lot like me in the way that, like, if she has an argument with somebody, she holds it to herself. She's mad at herself. She doesn't sit there and is mad at the other person about what they did. She's mad at herself about her possible contribution. And that's really, I don't think that's ego. That's not ego to me.
No.
That's a completely opposite side. But for people that are empaths, and it's very difficult. It's difficult to have arguments. You don't want to feel that afterwards.
Yes.
It's like,
I always feel that post, like after I've had my ego's taken over for a minute.
Yeah.
And then I have regret.
The regret,
and remorse, and like that empathy kicks in of like, oh man, I really probably upset that person by doing that, and now I have to face that. But I make myself do that.
Right.
That's part of my lesson.
Right.
To walk this earth in this body with my soul, I cannot live in that kind of strife.
No, you can't.
And unhappiness. There's got to be some level, a huge level, a greater percentage of harmony than there is conflict. I mean, you're always going to have disagreements and conflict. We're just individual entities.
Yeah.
But if you have the love and the admiration for certain people in your life, then ego should not be a problem.
No. I think we all can agree that we've all made mistakes in our life.
Oh, yeah.
And it is hard to say that I've made a mistake, but the moving forward from it is so important, because if you're just continuously kicking what's behind you, you're never going to be able to move forward. Yeah. And that's a part of our ego about letting go, is that we have such a hard time letting go of the past, about, what other people may have said to us, or how it made us feel, or whatever. But you can't move forward with that kind of baggage, and that is ego. Mm-hmm. And we all do that. We all have that. But this person said this to me. Okay, but how many years ago was that?
Right. So that's when it's time to humble yourself and go, I gotta let this go.
Exactly. Even when it's like fighting yourself. Like, I joke sometimes, and I see these memes that say, laying in bed and you're falling asleep, and all of a sudden you have a memory from when you were 7 and something that you said that was mean.
Right.
You have no idea how many of those I have. And I've gotten to the point now where I realize that most people don't remember things the same way that you do. So even if you said something to somebody, they probably don't remember it. You're beating yourself up for it.
Right.
You also can't go back and take it back or fix the past. So what I try to do, like when I have a thought like that, is maybe do something like to pay it forward to somebody, to pay my karma back for that, hoping that maybe I'll erase some of that memory, fill it with something better, or that I'll feel better about it.
Instead of sitting there and replaying the whole scene and what you should have said.
What you should have said. I was 7 years old and I should have said this and I shouldn't have said that. Oh my gosh, seriously, you cannot go back to 7.
Again, it's those arguments in your head. It's just like it's such a waste of time.
It is a waste of time,
and it takes work. It still does, not to do that.
Yeah,
and to stop myself as soon as don't do that.
It's self-control.
Yeah,
it's a lot of self-control. Not just with like the arguments, but even with the worrying, like in your own head, and saying, "Okay, I'm not going to worry about this anymore. I'm not going to let this control my mind," and trying to find ways to put it out, because that's really important. Your mind, you got to calm it down.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what else is on my list here for things that may show you your ego is out of control. You need control. I think we all need control to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But with certain things, it is ego.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
I think that's why meditation, and I still cannot get where, I do it at times, but I'd love to have like a set time that I sit and just devote to that.
Right.
But that is that is our natural way of stopping that.
Yeah. Relinquishing the control.
Yes.
With life, I think a lot of us, we stagnate ourselves because we want to be that driver. We want to be in control. And if we would just not, and just step back from it and let the universe take control and be in charge,
But we have to consider that there's a lot of people, many that don't believe the way we believe, or think of the things that we think of, or want to ponder and question, and maybe the same with a lot of our listeners. So you can't tell, an atheist, to believe in something if they don't believe in it.
No, for sure you can't.
But
I don't think everybody should believe the way we do. I think that's why we're all unique and different,
No, I don't really put a name or a label on it. I just know that, yes, there's definitely...
Yeah.
There's something other than this life that we do after. And it's... there's almost an extension of me over there that's assuring me here that is true, So I'm guiding with the help of, I'm sure I have loved ones and spirit guides and all that, but I am involved in it too, because I made this plan to come here to do this. Right. It's up to me in the bigger picture of, am I going to fulfill the contract that I set out to do? Or am I going to let my ego get in the way?
That's right.
And to shut me down on all different levels. Right. Meaning, whether it's interests, personal interests, family, love, spirituality, beliefs, those kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
The more I can humble, be open to be teachable, and quiet my mind, the less my ego does this.
Yeah, that's right. Let's see, a few more things here that I wrote down. You can't look at your own flaws. A lot of this is things that they're hard for us to face in ourselves. Right. And it is hard to say out loud that you have flaws, and you don't have to start there. Right. I can deal with my flaws internally and know that I'm battling those, and then later tell you, hey, I battled this about myself. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Because it is harder when, it's publicly being battled. But it is important to deal with those things inside of yourself. I really feel like that.
I got a lot better.
Yeah.
I've got, there was, as a young teenager, 20-something kind of thing, not so good.
Yeah.
Not at that.
Yeah.
But I've just, in time, I'm like a fine wine. I'm getting old.
Yeah.
So I learned things, but I've let myself learn them and acknowledged, had to humble myself and say, I do that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right. Exactly.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And that's hard. That's hard to say, but it is. Once you can face that, I definitely think it makes changes in you when you can say, okay, I do that. And I'm going to change that. And I recognize that flaw. That's okay that I have that. And it is okay because we're human.
Having a kid is really helpful for that.
It is.
I hate to say it because you're the parent, and this is how it is, blah, blah, blah. And then they come at you about something about you. Yeah. And you're all,
damn it.
Can't argue, but I want to argue. Go to your room. No, I'm kidding. I don't do that, but.
No. Oh, that's funny, though. Yeah, it is. And especially, she's not my biological daughter, but I'm sure you see things in her that you do that you're like, oh, man, I rubbed off on her that way. Mm-hmm. That's how it happens. And we don't even realize that it happens. And then all of a sudden we've turned into our parents and are like, ooh.
Yeah.
Let's see. A few more before I moved on. Being jealous of what others have. And this, too, can go along with a strong focus on material possessions. I think once you realize what's actually important in life, you start to let go of that need. Yeah. Everybody wants nice things and material possessions, but when they become the focus of your life, oh, I have a beautiful new, Mercedes that cost me $100,000. You like my new car? Well, why are you getting that car? Are you getting it to shove it in somebody's face?
Right.
Or do you really love this car? Is it a status symbol?
Yeah.
I love my car. I have a VW. It's not a status symbol. It's actually something that I've always wanted.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's not about what other people think of you. You should have what you like because you like it. And if you're trying to impress other people, that's your ego.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree.
The need to win always. And having little tolerance for others and their differences. So, let's see. We have enough time for this one. I really was hoping we would get here. And you've already mentioned a few things. This is how to let go of your ego. What can we actually do to let go of it? Because it is important and it is difficult.
Right.
And one of the things that you said is meditate. And it really is important to have that focus. I can't explain why. But once you do it and once it becomes a part of your life, you understand it makes you calmer.
Yeah.
It makes you see things differently because you have taken that time out for yourself, for your mind.
It helps you physically too. Lower your blood pressure. Yeah. It can do a lot of good.
Yeah. It can substitute a nap. I've done that lately. I've been like, I'm really bored. I don't know what to do with myself. And I'm like, I don't want a nap, but I need to kind of chill. And I'll meditate. Yeah. After I've already meditated once earlier.
Yeah.
All I do is put music on and just not think and just let the music take me where it takes me.
And if you notice, the dogs, they do that often where they could just be laying there and they're not sleeping, but they're just
zoned.
You kind of get that vibe from them that they're just in that place.
Yep. This one is very important. Always choose love. Practice being more compassionate, giving, and kind.
Mm-hmm.
If you can do that with everything, even if it's the person that cuts you off in traffic, just not letting it affect you. Sometimes we'll be driving and somebody will cut me off or something will happen and I don't even react and I'm wondering, what is he thinking? Because I'm not reacting to what just happened. And then other times I'm like, duh. But it is important to stop yourself in that and say, I'm not going to get upset. It's not worth it. I'm going to show love. Because when you bring something back with love, somebody that's coming at you with hate, not in that incident, but, in other instances, if somebody's coming back at you with hate and you're not returning that hate, it confuses your opponent a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And it's better for you.
Yeah, it's like reverse psychology.
Yes.
Almost.
It is.
And totally. It's just, somebody cut you off on a freeway and your ego wants to go, how dare you?
Right?
So, but 9 times out of 10, you end up passing them
exactly.
5 minutes later.
You're bye. Yeah.
What difference does it make?
Remember me? I was back there. You cut me off.
Unless they, almost or did cause an accident. But then if you let your ego run with it, it could ruin your day.
It could absolutely ruin your day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where you have to stop it. Little things like that happen. Somebody does something that pisses you off, but they may not even know what they've done. Yes. And you let it ruin your day. And they're going about their day it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Let's see. Be honest. Not just with yourself, but with others too. It's really important that you're honest with yourself. Because if you can't be honest with yourself, you cannot be honest with others.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let go of the past. We kind of talked about that. What others did to you is what others did to you. And that's the past. And what you've done in the past is what you've done in the past. Let it go. Move on. So important. when it comes
It's
to
a
letting go of
memory.
that
It
ego.
doesn't exist anymore. We have to realize that, time is what we've made up to
Right.
measure something we can't see.
Yes.
But what happened in the past, yes, it happened. But it's not continuing for you now.
Right.
It's the past, but that's just a memory.
Right.
All you have is the moment, and then 5 seconds more, what we had is gone.
Right.
So we can dwell in that memory, because that's all it is.
Right.
Or we can accept the now
That's
and
right.
move and hope to move forward to the next second and
Right.
minute, hour, year, whatever.
Here's a couple of ways that I've worked at moving forward from like these types of situations. One of the things is that I used to beat myself up about certain things like what we were talking about. Now as a medium, when I start to think about those things, like I had a dog when I was a kid that I felt bad that her doghouse wasn't like up to par and it would get wet inside. And this was a horrible memory that I've carried my whole life and
Yeah.
have felt really bad about. Well, now I'm triggered. New memories are triggered for me. Things are put together. So where that memory ended, I've now been able to pick up the memory and see the rest of it. And what's cool is, and this is why I'm sharing this, is that 9 out of 10 times, that memory is not what you remember. As soon as I pointed out the doghouse to my mom, we went out and got another one and we fixed it. My memory was that we let it stay like that and the poor dog suffered.
Right.
But that was my 7-year-old memory.
It was a trauma.
It was a trauma.
Right.
And
But you
so-
overcame that.
Right. But so now when I have those types of things that I dwell on, I think about, you know what? My memory might not be right about this trauma. And also, like, if there's a person involved in it, they don't see it the same way that you do. So, like, those fake arguments where you're fighting with somebody that happened, like, 10 years ago, the people don't see that as their memory's not the same of it.
No.
So it's like, you're not arguing, you're just bringing up old memories, if that makes sense. So those are a couple of things that I've tried to change about myself, and that helped. It's helped a lot.
Another rule, if I can, I don't know if it's in here, but I'd like
Go
to
for it.
interject, is accepting one another as imperfect.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So if somebody does something to you, it doesn't mean you need to go sift through your database of all the things you've done to other people, but just remember
Right.
that we are all imperfect.
That's right.
And we will all make mistakes.
Right.
We will all hurt something or somebody, and we will all be hurt by something or somebody. That is just part of our lesson. Mm-hmm. It's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people. And again, we can't allow that ego to be too much of a defense mechanism in those times. But we've got to keep that in mind.
Right.
Because when dealing with people in life, we're not perfect. They're not going to see it exactly the way that I was seeing it.
No.
A lot of on your poll, a lot of the reasons were great.
Yeah, that's what I read off before. Yeah, where
and
the
most of us
reasons-
can probably relate to a good majority of them. That's just being human.
Yeah, you're human.
We are imperfect.
Yeah.
So we can't go and beat the other guy up for being imperfect when we're just as imperfect.
That's right.
So we got to keep that in mind.
Yeah. And that made me think of something else, too, is that 2 wrongs don't make a right.
They don't.
I think we tend to do that, too, is like, well, you did this. Yeah, but you did this.
Yeah.
Well, what?
Right.
It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
That's something else we have to let go of.
You do. You have to determine whether you can get past it
Yeah.
and move forward or you can't.
That's right.
And that's on a personal level, but only you can control the amount that your ego plays a role in that.
Right. Yeah, actually on my list I have practice forgiveness and letting go. Accept the apology you never received.
Yeah.
Life is a lot easier when you accept that apology you never received. And you just say, you know what? I'm going to let it go.
Yeah.
It's not important, And like this process, going through all of this and trying to let go of the ego, there's a lot of people that I hurt in my past, and I haven't been the best person, and I wish that I could go back and apologize to every single one of those people for the things that I did.
Right.
But I can't.
No.
I can't hear. I can say I apologize to every single one of you that's listening if I hurt you. I mean, I can do that. But those things they do stick with us, and they do affect us, and we have to let it go for ourselves too, to be able to say, okay, I did these things, I'm gonna let it go.
Right.
Even if the other person won't let it go about me, I have to let it go, because that was me however many years ago. It's not me now.
I think that the more you open yourself and you change like this, you realize that there's trauma that you suffer from things that were done to you, but there's also trauma that you suffer for things that you did to others.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the guilt and the things like that you would carry around, as a result.
Yeah, you have to try to let go of that. And that kind of is like apologizing to yourself, too. Sorry, self, that I did this, but that's not me anymore. So,
right.
Let's see.
No, your mistakes don't define you.
No, they don't.
They help shape you.
I remember when I was younger that I would say people don't change. They just find new ways to lie. And you know what? That is not true.
Right.
It is not true, because I can tell you from personal experience that I went through a period where I didn't know who I was, and I lost myself. And it was like a roller coaster of coming back now to where I am. And so it just, you can change. You can change for the worst, and you can change for the better.
Right.
And if you were a good person once and you had a bad time and became a bad person, and then you're a good person again, it's very, very possible. You can do anything. You can be anything that you want.
And you can continue to change.
Absolutely.
And grow. And if you're being teachable, and you can. I mean, I said this to you before. I kind of felt like maybe at about 30, late 20s, early 30, was when I sort of kind of felt like I was the most comfortable with who I ended up kind of being.
Yeah.
Not really seeing that, 15 years later, there would be another change.
Right. It's constantly changing, yeah.
Where I feel even more comfortable with me.
Yeah.
And, dealing with some of those things I've done to other people in my life.
Right.
As well as the things that have been done to me. And it's important that I forgive and let go.
That's right. It's very important. You forgive yourself. You forgive
the
others
spirit
and let
has
go.
to calm the ego and tell the ego, it's okay.
Right.
You're not weak.
Right.
You're not a sissy. You're not weak. You're still strong.
Yep.
But you have to let this go.
Yep.
In order to move out of this.
Right.
And into a new place.
Yep, I've realized that if I want to be the person that I want to be, I have to let go of these pieces of my ego, the damaging pieces that are left. Mm-hmm. And it is going to take time, but that's okay. Yeah. Because what else do I have?
Right.
And that's something that we forget too. We're like, oh, this is too much work. It's going to take too much time. Well, what else do you have? You have time. If you start now, you always have time. That's just our own brains.
If there's someone that's that important to you in life, and there's strife or there's something going on that's keeping you from that, you got to take a hard look at that. And both parties have to.
Yes.
Hopefully both parties would. But if one side is and you're not, you need to take a look at that.
Right.
Because if that person's that important to you, then you should be willing to let your ego go. And being right should not be important.
No. A couple other ways to help let go of the ego. Appreciate everything. Even the small things. People are going to be like, you're crazy. I appreciate the coronavirus.
Yeah.
Do you know why I appreciate it?
Why?
Because it helped me move on in my career. It forced me out of one career and into another one. It's given me more time with my family. I could give you a list of reasons why I will embrace it. When you can find the negative, take a negative in your life, something bad that's happened to you, and you can find a way to appreciate what it's done for you, it changes your perception, which changes your ego.
Yeah, it's true.
And this one I really, really loved, and I do this often, and I highly recommend it, is practice gratitude. Take 5 minutes. Just take 5 minutes and think about all of the people, the experiences, the lessons, the mistakes that you are grateful for.
Yeah.
It will help.
And it's okay if you've been in points of your life where you're really good at practicing this, and then you slip back into, that.
Yeah. Every day is
There's
a
so many
battle.
people that go through that, so don't feel like it can be a daily challenge. That's a great advice, because I tried that a while ago. My dad gave me a book, and I was reading it, and it was called Don't Sweat the Small Things, because they're really just small things.
Yeah, it's a great book.
So one of their suggestions was like, just put a Post-it or something on your nightstand with one word, or that you want to wake up to.
Yeah.
And that was like gratitude. I thought, man, I got to be grateful, because hey, I'm waking up another day, and I got 24 hours to spend it how I want.
Yep.
So that was important. It really helped me wake up with a different mindset.
You said a good thing right there, and that was to do with what I want, how I want. Take the 24 hours and do with how I want. It's at that moment that you decide, because how you start your day emotionally is how your day will go. Now, can things happen through the day? Of course they can. But again, you can decide through the day how you let those affect you, and if they're going to ruin your day or not. It's all about perception and how you look at things, and that's why like this fits so much in with the spiritual awakening and the opening yourself up, is that it all fits together like a little puzzle.
Yeah. Kind of starts with you. You got to take care of you, because it's hard to take care of others if you can't take care of you.
Yes.
So that's all good, though. That was a good one. I like that.
Yeah, I thought it would be.
It's hard. It's hard, I think, for all of us to admit I got an ego, but we all do.
We all do. And I asked that in our poll questions. When I ask the poll questions, a lot of times I use them in my notes. I don't talk about sometimes what the people have said, but I asked our listeners how many of them felt that they have an ego, and most said that they felt that they at least had a little bit.
Yeah.
And there were a few people that said that they're working on it, but there were only 2 people that said that they feel that they don't have an ego. And I'll tell you what, we all do. Even if we don't want to face it, we all do. That's the hardest part of the ego, is just accepting that you have it and that you're going to fix it.
Well, some people express it differently. I've met very humble people that have an ego. I know they do, because they're human, but they don't express it like others that you may not like as much.
Right, for sure.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, I think it's true.
Yep.
Cool. Well, thanks.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
A good episode.
I hope people got something out of that.
Me too.
Well, before we say adios, you want to share your page real fast?
Yes. You can find me on my website at SamanthaJonesPsychicMedium.com. And I want to say thank you to all the people that have been doing that, because I have received a lot of new listeners that have come to me for readings. So I appreciate that. Check out my website. And even if you just want to say hi, just send me a message. Say hello. Love it.
Hello, friend.
Hello, friends.
Cool.
And you, sir.
DJonesArtCollection.com for my art, and at DJonesArtCollection for Instagram and Facebook. GypsyBrown.com for the music. At Gypsy Brown Band for Facebook. And at Gypsy Brown Music for Instagram. So head into a studio to start mixing the 3 songs we have pretty soon. So we're scheduling all that. Pretty excited.
Yeah. It's moving along.
Can't wait to hear it, boom.
Me too.
Big and badass.
Yeah. Me too.
So that's all I got.
Wonderful.
Well, we hope everybody got something out of this. I did.
Yep, I did
it's
too.
It's kind of one of those tough, introspective topics, but
yep. I
it's
got
good.
snot nose, so we know it's good.
Did you? Oh, and you didn't bring tissue?
I didn't bring tissues.
Again.
I'm running to the bathroom as soon as we're done.
All right. Well, we hope everybody has a great week.
That we do.
And until next week, peace and love.